So my dogs are freaking out. They're playing and they're doing their thing. It's almost bedtime. Actually, they were supposed to go to bed an hour ago, but I'm a bad puppy parent. So we're talking today about how to be human, talking to people who are transgender and non-binary. Um, so I think that a lot of people they don't understand how to talk to any individuals that are transgender or non-binary. No. Um, so we're going to talk about that today because I think it's an important thing to discuss. And I wrote up a really long thing, so that's what we're talking about. So first, the number one thing that you need to remember when you're talking to those that are transgender or non-binary is to respect their pronouns. So it's okay to ask how somebody wants to be referred as, he, she, them, or they, or whatever their pronoun may be. So make sure that if you're not sure, just say something like, I don't want to disrespect you. I don't want to do something wrong. So how would you like me to refer to you as? And then stick with that pronoun. It's very important. I think a lot of people forget that you have to remember people's pronouns. Some way, somehow, out of respect, you need to remember how someone wants to be referred as. That's just a huge, huge thing. Um, don't dead name. Do you guys know what dead name means? I always like to is dead naming is the use of the birth or other former names of a transgender or non-binary person without their consent. So it's a dead name is a birth name of someone who has changed their name. Um, so that's important. Dead name, no dead naming. So basically, if you knew somebody as Brian and they now want to be Brianna, it's not okay to continuously slip over and over again. After a while, it no longer becomes an accident. You're doing it on fucking purpose. So if you have somebody that you knew as um, hi, as you knew as Brian before originally, and now they want to be referred to as Brianna, it's very important. You don't have, most people in general, it's not that hard to remember. You just need to figure out a way to do it. So don't dead name. Don't accidentally be like, oh, Brian. Oh, I mean, Brianna. It's insulting. It really is. So, one, two, maybe three times, it's an accident. After that, you're just being an asshole. So, rein in your curiosity. I am guilty for this. I ask a lot of questions only because I do these talks. Um, it can be very overwhelming to somebody that's transgender or they are non-binary. It's okay to ask questions, but when you're asking question after question after question, and suddenly it feels like you're interrogating them, that is not okay. So don't interrogate somebody just because you have a curiosity. Uh, I try to limit my questions to 2 to 3 questions. That's it. Then I wait for another time. Then I can ask 2 or 3 questions. If I'm not exactly sure, I type it in. Google is amazing. It tells you all kinds of stuff. So I don't know a lot about transgender or non-binary because I'm just learning some of this stuff. But I go and I talk to people. I try to limit my questions to 3 or 4. I don't like overwhelm a person that is transgender or non-binary. Be inclusive. So I don't think that people understand what inclusivity means. So we're gonna go ahead and Google that shit, just so I can get the correct name of it. Including or covering all of it. what is expected. So containing as part of a whole. So that means that if you are um, being inclusive, you accept this person in a whole, not just parts of them. You can't pick and choose what people, their personalities, their identities. You can't pick and choose what you want to accept. That's not okay. If somebody is identifying some way, and they might pick things from all kinds of different identities, it's not your right to say that's not okay. I'm sorry, but it's not. We are humans, and each of us identify in our own specific way. We can pick and choose off of the buffet whatever we want to pick and choose, and it's not your right to say that it's wrong. Actually, it's wrong of you to do that. So be all inclusive. If a person says, I'm non-binary, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, you have to accept that, because that is that person's identity and their personality, and you have no right to say that's not okay. It's, you get it. I don't have to repeat it again. Think before you speak. I have vomit mouth. A lot of people have vomit mouth, so you just vomit all this stuff and it just comes out. Um, don't do that. Think before you talk to somebody. And if you're not real sure, googly Google. It's a great little tool. If you have a question, maybe Google it before you ask somebody that is identifying as something that you don't understand. So you can Google if it matches on several. No, if it matches on several different websites, it's probably pretty close to what is truthful. No. Hey, my dog loves this stuff. He's like a freak for this. Come here. He, 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 it's like puppy crack. you want your puppy to have a little puppy crack? This is the stuff. Okay, so Google is a great way to find out information before you ask questions. So make sure that you think before you speak, before you're asking questions. Don't ask fucking stupid questions. Like, are you sure? Yeah, they're pretty sure. And if they're not, they have the right to change their mind later. That's the great thing about 2020. It's okay to stumble. So it's okay to screw up and maybe accidentally call Brianna Brian. Um, but if you I already covered that. If you continuously do it, you're a fucktard. You can't keep doing it. Can't keep doing it. Although I have this problem with my dogs. I have two dogs. Well, my daughters have two dogs, Otis and Bailey. I'm constantly calling Bailey Otis. That's just because my brain it can't. But that doesn't happen with people. With me, um, so remember, guys, somebody's gender is not your call to make. So you need to no. You can't say that it's okay, it's wrong, it's right. It's not your fucking choice. It's like me coming in and saying, "Oh, you have to wear this shirt. You can only wear this color. You can only go to this place for lunch. You can only drive this type of car. You can only walk. You can only make left-hand turns." It's not your right to tell somebody how they identify, what their gender is, what their ideology of identity is. That is not your call, and you need to respect people when they say, "This is me, this is how I'm going to identify." Even if you don't like it, you don't have to drink their Kool-Aid. They might like cherry, watermelon, grape, banana mixed together. You don't have to drink it, okay? But you do have to be accepting of it. And that doesn't mean that acceptance is you going out and experiencing. Acceptance is that you accept people as a human. That's all it is. We're accepting people as a human and their humanity. Humility, humanity, be humane. Um, so ignoring what others identify themselves as can actually be alienating and sometimes traumatizing. The misuse of pronouns might be seen as innocent at first, but over time, if you keep doing it, guess what? It's no longer an accident. You're doing that shit on purpose. So remember, don't misuse somebody's pronouns, um, because it makes the person who you pronoun incorrectly uncomfortable. Their values are diminished. Um, and it's a form of discrimination. It's harmful to presume someone's pronoun by just looking at them. I could not. Okay. No! I, shit, they're gonna tear up the bottle now. I would never automatically assume that I know somebody's pronoun. Don't do that. It's disgusting. Don't do that. Um, so ignoring what others identify themselves as, it's not healthy for that individual, and you shouldn't be doing it. Referring to people with terms and phrases that they don't agree with, like "it's just a phase," it's a destructive force that implies the sense of doubt, fantasy, or role play. Describing someone as a former man or biologically a man or woman is demeaning. You shouldn't be doing that. What the hell's wrong with you? When you insist on using the former name of an individual that the individual no longer uses, it symbolizes a preference of your own comfort and can be outright rude if done intentionally. I think that there's a lot of people that they act like it's an accident. I don't know why I keep doing that with my pinky. They act like it's an accident, but they're really doing it intentionally. Um, so don't say things. I have experience where somebody says he was a man at one time, or she was a girl, now she's a man. No, that's wrong. Um, most of our a lot of people don't understand what gender is. Gender and sex are separate matters. So gender and sexuality are not the same thing. Sex is a word that refers to a person's biology, including chromosomes, hormones, and organs. And if, sex is not binary. So let's keep that in mind. Gender or gender identity is the state of being a man, woman, both, neither, or either other genders altogether. Gender also includes roles and expectations society assigns to each person based on their maleness or femaleness. These expectations become so ingrained that we may not even recognize when or how we are reinforcing them. Gender evolves over culture, over time, and there is not. Um, God, I wrote this out. Jelly, will you come get them, please? um, So we need to make space for people changing. We make space for all kinds of things changing, laws. God, my daughters are amazing. Clothing, trends, things like that. Now, gender and sexuality identity is not a trend. This is how people feel. And these people have been feeling this way for years on end, their whole lives, most of them. Most people know that something's just displaced at a very young age. And we don't have any right of saying that that is just a phase. It's just something that you're going through. You'll grow out of it. It doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. We can grow out of the foods that we like. We can grow out of the things that we like. But the way that we identify, the way that we process things is ingrained. And it's important to remember that this is part of who we are permanently. Permanently. And that's just the way it works. So we need to make sure that we mind our pronouns and avoid misgendering. Despite being such small words, pronouns have a lot of significance when it comes to identity. He, they, them, their. It's not a matter of grammar. We use they. If you're not exactly sure, you can say them, they, or their. If I'm not sure, I really try to watch my pronouns. If I'm not sure, I try, and I sometimes I mess up. I try not to refer to people as he or she. I always try to say them, they, or their, just because I think to me, and I could be wrong, guys. If I'm wrong, please tell me. But I think if I'm not really exactly sure what pronoun they want me to use, I just feel like it's better to anonymize it, um, instead of me, um, Jesus Christ, I'm all distracted. Instead of me just basically saying whatever I want. It's not okay. That's just not okay. So make sure that you mind your pronouns and avoid misgendering. So I like to use they, them, or their in reference to single people. It's an induction. This is my friends. Um, I don't. I try not to do that, and we all should be doing something like that, anyways. We should be watching it. If you meet somebody new and they haven't made it clear which pronouns they want you to use, um, you can ask, how do you want to be referred to? What pronouns do you use? That is fine. Um, a simple, how would you like to be referred to? What pronouns do you want to use? They should they shouldn't get offended, especially if you know you can have somebody that identifies as a woman. She still wants to be um, used another pronoun. She doesn't want that femininity to define her. So, on the norm in this community, we really need to start asking everybody. It doesn't matter if you think you know, because this can change. People can say, you know what, I identify more with this than I did with this 5 years ago. So that in itself could change, because they might not have realized something. They might not have something might not have clicked until they heard something or whatever. So it's okay to say, hey, how would you like to be referred to, and what pronouns would you like me to use? And then just realistically, if it seems like they're going through transition, you can ask that multiple times as well, because especially if they're going through transition, they might want to be, they this transition might move to another area. When they're starting, especially if they're starting their transition, the transition can go and it can change until they find exactly how they identify. So you got to keep that in mind. Um, so if they say, whether it's he, she, they, them, or someone else, something else, when someone lets you know their pronoun, accept him. Using the wrong pronouns or misgendering is a sign that you don't believe somebody knows who they are better than you do. It could also be a form of harassment when it's done intentionally. Don't say, she's a formal woman who now goes by Michael. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's like, don't do that. Just don't do that. Instead, say, this is Michael. He has amazing stories, and you should meet him sometime. Um, so, so you're gonna respect how people identify, and you're gonna refrain from dead naming. It's unfortunate, not uncommon for trans people to still be referred by their given names. This is called dead naming, and it is an act of disrespect. It can easily be avoided by simply asking, how would you like to be referred as? Many trans people put a lot of time, emotion, and energy into the name that they use. This is a name that they're picking. They're choosing this. It means something to them. It wasn't given to them at birth. It wasn't somebody else chose this name for them. They chose it themselves, and it means something to them. So it's important that you create validity in that, that you create value in that, because of the fact that this name that they're choosing means something to them. You have no right to say, oh, that name doesn't suit you. You should be Sarah instead of Becky. No, that's not your right. So remember that people choose these names, and the use of any other name can be harmful and should be avoided whenever possible. Okay, so when you talk about a person, be careful not to prioritize your curiosities. Stick to topics that are relevant and to why the person came to see you. Don't say like, oof, I just don't. I wrote this all up because I think it's real important. Um, you know, I think that a lot of people struggle. A lot of people struggle with people saying, I was born this way, but I really want to be this way. I don't think people understand it. I think that, we all decide that we are born and that's the path we should be taking, and that is just the path of God or the path of life or whatever you want to call it. It's not so. I don't understand the ignorance of people. Um, you got to be. It's appropriate to be curious. Curiosity is a valid feeling, but acting on it isn't your job. It's very disrespectful to many trans people that you may be curious about details of the person's gender, the body, and the anatomy. Understanding, but you need to understand that you do not have the right to that information. If they want to tell you something, they will tell you. If they want to share that information, they will share that information. But it is not your right to have the information that you feel you need. It is their right to be able to keep some of that stuff private to themselves. You don't have the right to the information. Just like you do not owe an explanation about your past life, they don't owe you one either. So they don't have to explain to you why they were, their life is Brian and now their life is Brianna. They don't have to explain that to you. That is not your right to know. Their past is their past. They don't have to say, well, I was 5 years old. I didn't really feel like a Brian. I identified more with this and I did this and I did that. And they don't need to explain that shit to you. All you need to know is that their name is Brianna. I don't walk up to somebody and say, so what's your past? It's just, I'm doing. So, when you meet most people, you probably don't inquire about the state of their genitalia or their medication regimen. That is personal health information. It is personal, and being trans doesn't take away the right to privacy. Okay, so having my lung removed, nobody comes up and asks me, so how was that? How did that feel? How did you recover? They don't ask me those questions. I don't even really tell people that I have my lung removed. I had my lung removed. It was hard. The recovery was a struggle. But people don't ask me. I just say I only have one lung. That's pretty much the extent of it. I don't owe people an explanation on why I only have one lung or what I went through when I went and had that lung removed or um, all that. That is just no. If you want to understand their experience better, do some research of your own into a different option available to people who identify as transgender, non binary, or gender non conforming. But don't ask an individual about their specific journey unless they have given you permission. You can very easily ask, I have questions. I have a lot of questions. Would you mind if I ask you 2 or 3 questions? But I highly recommend Google. Google is an amazing way. That's the way I get research most of my shit. And then I go and I say, hey, can you confirm that this is correct? Because I want to do a talk on it. Can you confirm that this is right? That this is, the way I should discuss it? Or should I use better words? That's okay. If you say, I want to do this, or I want to do this, or I don't understand this, can I ask you what this means more in depth and detail? That's okay. But when you're sitting there and you're interrogating them and you're throwing your stuff down their throat, that's not okay. So just don't do it. Don't say, so are you ever going to have the surgery? Don't do that. There's a lot of reasons why people don't have surgery. They can't afford it. They're scared. They don't want to make that permanent transition. Maybe they're still deciding. Don't ask that fucking question. Come on. Are you going to pull that asshole out of your ass? Don't ask that question. Are you going to ever have the surgery? Or what is the surgery like? How did they do it? How did they create it? Don't ask that. That's what Google is for. I go to Google, ask Google. Google doesn't get offended. Google doesn't care if you ask it a question. But I guarantee you, if you ask somebody a question and it offends them, it's going to hurt their feelings. Not only that, it's going to hurt them personally. It's going to hurt them. So remember, be mindful of gender inclusivity. Inclusivity. To be gender inclusive is to be open to all genders, identity, and gender expressions in a discussion. So please make sure that it might not be for you. That's okay. You don't have to live that life. Um, so make sure that they have a lot of issues. Transgender people, God, I mean, I can be claps. That's huge. Changing everything about yourself. I mean, really, when you're going through a transition, non-binary, transgender, whatever, you literally have to change so much to become the person that you're meant to be. It's a huge emotional struggle. And some people say it's not worth it. Some people say it's worth it. Some people, they struggle internally. They struggle with people, how people see them. They struggle just going to the store. It shouldn't be this hard. We really shouldn't. It shouldn't be this hard for people to be who they really should be and how they identify. And you know, take into consideration some transgender female to male. They still have to deal with things like periods and um, women issues. So not all the time can you see some of the struggles that they're going through. So take that into mind, that not all the time are you going to know what they're going through, or that you can identify on what they're going through and the hardcore transition that they're going through. So don't ever just assume that you can sympathize with them or empathize with them, because I don't think I ever could. I think that it's a brave thing. It's amazing, and the struggles that transgender and non-binary people go through is just it's not easy. I commend anybody that decides to do that. So remember, words like real, regular, and normal can be excluded. Comparing transgender women against so-called real women separates them from their identity and continues to incorrect ideas that gender is biological. Um, so you can use more precise descriptive language rather than gender buckets. Isn't only more inclusive, but it is just clearer. Don't say women and transgender women show the huge numbers if you're referring to them. Women, transgender women show huge numbers in the rallies. Instead, say something like lots of women showed up for the rally of record numbers. Guys, I can't stress this to me. I'm constantly putting my foot in my mouth. Think twice about your words. Remember, you're speaking about another person and another human being. Before you open your mouth and think about what details may be unnecessary, diminish their humanity, or result in your own discomfort and theirs. Remember that they're people, and being transgender is just a part of that. Terms like transgender people and transgender community are more appropriate. Likewise, many transgender people dislike the terms transgendered or transness. And now I don't know this personally. Somebody told me this, that they don't like it when they are referred to as transgendered or transness. It's like it was something that happened to them. So um, I can only tell you, I don't know because I'm not transgender, but I can tell you from talking to some transgender people that really bothers them. It's easier to come up with rather than coming up with new or shorthand ways to describe trans people, just call them trans people. It's not that hard. This way you can avoid accidentally stumbling into an offensive slur. Please note that even when one person identifies with a term or a slur, it doesn't mean that everybody does. And it doesn't make it okay for you to use that term for every trans person that you meet. Um, Being trans isn't relevant when interfacing with people. Other people that probably aren't necessarily to question are whether a person is pre-op or post-op and how long they started the transition. Don't talk to your cis people's bodies about when you introduce them, so to extend the curiosity of trans people. Don't say, oh, we met a transgender at the bar last night. Sometimes I say that crossdressers, I identify them transgender. Crossdressers, we're accepting of people that are transgender, we're accepting of people that are crossdressers. um, I personally think that that's okay. I could be wrong, but I never say, "Oh yeah, we met this transgender couple at a bar." No, I met Becky and Mary. That's it. I mean, you don't have to. They're humans. Treat them like humans. Um, there's a lot of mistakes of being a human being, but change is the best part of being human too. Navigating new territories can be difficult. We get it. While these guidelines may be helpful, um, they're also just guidelines. People are diverse, and one size will never fit all, especially when it comes to self-reference. We need to remember as humans we are bound to mess up at some point. Even with the best of intentions, we may land inappropriate. That we may not land appropriately. So how one person feels respected may not be how another person feels respected. If you flub up, politely correct your mistake and move forward. The important part is to remember to focus on the other person's feelings, not your own. Okay? So, so what are some things that you should not do? Now, this is not in any means by my list. I talked to people, I got this list, and this is what they told me. These are the don'ts when you are dealing with those of not of gender and transgender and non-binary. See, I just fucked up on accident. I'm sorry. Um, so don't make an assumption how someone would like to be referred to. Don't ask about genitalia a person has or would have, especially as a factor for deciding how you want to refer to the person. Don't be that idiot. Don't explain away a person's preference based on how it affects you. Don't explain a person by previous identity called cause dead naming, and it is a form of disrespect against trans people. If you are unaware how to refer to the person, ask them. Don't out a person. If you happen to learn about a person's previous name or gender assignment, keep it to your goddamn self. Don't use offensive shorthand slurs. Don't say, I'm sorry, but this is so hard for me to call you Jimmy after I've known you as Justine for so long. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that. Okay. Um, sorry. So, what are some things that you can do? Ask respectfully of person's pronouns and commit to using them. Refer to a person only by their current identity, not their past identity. Correct yourself if you've used the wrong name or pronouns. It's okay to make accidents. Like I said, one or two is okay. Avoid real, regular, or normal. Your transgender friend isn't as pretty as a real. I'm sorry. I said that wrong. Correct. Avoid using real, regular, or normal. Your transgender friend isn't as pretty as a real woman. They're a beautiful woman. End of sentence. So that basically means you don't say, "This is my friend Brianna. Isn't she as pretty as a real woman?" This is my friend Brianna. She's beautiful. It's that simple. You don't have to add all that extra shit in. It's descriptions that you just don't need. You don't need it. It's irrelevant at this point because Brianna is no longer Brian. So you don't need to say, "Isn't she as pretty as a woman, as a real woman?" Don't do that. Understand that you will make mistakes. Be open and receptive to feedback from trans people about how your language makes them feel. Remember, ask them or I tell them, if I offend you in any way, please let me know. Why? Because I'm human and I fuck up. I'm a straight cis female and I fuck up a lot. I don't live a day in your life. So if I offend you, let me know. I appreciate feedback, definitely, for sure. Um, Remember that all people are greater than their gender identity and expression. Don't focus too much on it either way. If you think someone is trans, don't ask, "Are you trans?" Don't ask that. It doesn't matter. They'll tell you if it ever becomes relevant enough for you to know, and if they feel comfortable sharing that information with you. Don't walk up to your Walmart cashier and say, "Did you used to be a female?" Or "Did you used to be a man?" Or "Are you transgender?" Don't do that. Oh, wow. Okay. If someone is trans or non-binary, or if you're just not sure, it doesn't hurt to ask them how you should address them. Asking them shows respect and that you want to validate your identity. Remember, we all have to be empathetic. We all have to realize how to put people first. Differences should not be crutches. No matter what box society has drawn for us, we should all be learning the power of words and celebrating people's differences and experiences, no matter what their age, ethnicity, gender, or state of being. Let's elevate our fellow humans through respect. Guys, it comes right down to this. Let's just be respectful of each other. Um, that's it. We're humans. We should be practicing humanity and humility, and we should be accepting. Um, I am not transgender, but that doesn't mean that I can't accept transgender or non binary people. To not do so just kind of makes me, if I were to do it, and I'm saying this towards me, if I were to say, "Oh no, that's not okay," or "That's not acceptable," I'm kind of being an asshole. And quite honestly, you're not living a day in their life, and it's not my right. It's not my right to say, "Oh, well, you should do this or you should like this or whatever." That's not my right. And that's the great thing of being a human. We have rights to say who we love and how we feel and who we are going to be. Not everybody likes the color purple. And a lot of people see different shades of blue. So remember that before you go and try to say, "Oh, this is not okay." It may not be okay for you, but that doesn't mean that it's not okay. It just means it's not okay for you. Guys, be good to each other. And remember, it's real important that you refer to transgender and non binary people by the name that they've chosen. Names are important. I can't tell you how important my name is to me. It was given to me throughout the years. I was able to add my stepdad's name on, my grandfather's name on, my I chose to do those things. That's why I really get upset when people screw up when they're referring to transgender or non-binary individuals. Names are important. All we have in this life is our name. Don't fuck up somebody's name for them. With that, I don't know why I'm so orange. Am I orange? Or is it just, I think maybe it's a screensaver. I'll look at it later. Please be kind to each other. We're all humans. We all have humanity. And we all should be treating each other humanely. And if I fucked up somewhere, just let me know. I can always remake these videos. It's not a big deal. Um, and I hope that you guys just never stop learning. Thank you very much, and you guys have a good evening. Bye.